Welcome back to another class on Dalet Amot shel Halacha en lo lakadosh Baruch Hu be'olama ela arba amot shel Halacha bilvad. We are continuing in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet in Halacha Zayin. This will be part 3 and the final part for Halacha Zayin be'ezrat Hashem. We want to continue in the next phase of the Halacha where the Ramah says v'im hivdil techilam. The Ramah says what happens if a person went ahead and he did Havadala initially without first washing his hands. Tzarich levarech acharav bracha me'ein gimel. You need to go ahead and bless after you had drank a revi'it of wine. You have to bless the after blessing of me'ein shalosh, which is the ala gefen, val priya gefen blessing. So the Ramah is telling us like this: a person on Moti Shabbat, he didn't wash his hands. He went ahead, he first did Havadala. Before he's going to go ahead and wash his hands, we're going to tell him, the Ramah is saying, let him go ahead and say the after blessing. Let him say, ala gefen val priya gefen. Comes the Mishnah Berurah Sivkat and Chavav, v'im hivdil techil, if he went ahead and he did Havadala initially, before washing the hands, the Mishnah Berurah tells you, Haga zo hi maskana data yesh omrim. This Haga, this Ramah, what he's saying over here, that if you went ahead and you did Havadala before the washing of the hands, he says you should know this is the conclusion of the opinion of the Yesh Omrim that we quoted in the Shulchan Aruch. Because the Yesh Omrim said, "De lo patar elim ken natal yadav kodem shivdil." You don't exempt the wine in the meal unless you first went ahead and you washed your hands before you did the Havadala. So comes the Ramani, adds to the Yesh Omrim, and he tells you that this is going to be the conclusion of their opinion. That if you went ahead and you did Havadala before the washing of the hands, the Ramah is going to tell you, in the opinion of the Yesh Omrim, you first need to go ahead and bless, and after blessing of Me'en Shalosh. So let's see that one more time inside. Hagazo hi maskanat data Yesh Omrim. This Haga is the conclusion of the opinion of the Yesh Omrim. The Sviriluhu, they held, the Yesh Omrim held, the Mashiv dil Kodem Hanitilam, this that he went ahead and he did the Havadala before the washing of the hands. Ava Pishu ala Shulchono, even though they did it on the table where they're going to eat the Suda Revid, or even in the room like we saw in the Mishnah Berurah, Eino Shaykh Lamashi Ishtet Toch HaMazon Acher Kach. It has nothing to do with what he's going to go ahead and drink afterwards during the meal. So basically the Havadala that he's doing now, before of the washing of the hands, has nothing to do with the cup of wine that he's going to drink in the middle afterwards when he's going to go ahead and wash his hands. Even though he's doing the Havadala on the table, it has no connection to what he's going to go ahead and drink in the bread meal after the Havadala. They're not connected. The Havadala and the kos shel yain and the cup of wine during the meal, since you didn't wash hands prior to the Havadala, we're going to tell you this Havadala is for the mitzvah of Havadala itself, has nothing to do with the meal that you're going to go ahead and have a drink in. Therefore, the Mishnah Berurah concludes and he says, Chayav levarech bracha achrona kodem hasuda. That's what the Ramah says. In the opinion of the Yesh Omrim, you are obligated to go ahead and bless the after blessing before the meal. So it comes out of here, according to the Ramah, if a person went ahead and he did Havadala prior to washing his hands, we're going to tell him, if you drank a revi'it of wine, if you drank 3 ounces of wine, you need to first go ahead and say the blessing of ala gefen, val priya gefen, and then wash your hands and then have your meal. However, comes the Mishnah Berurah and he says, Villa halacha. However, halachically speaking, the Mishnah Berurah is going to go like the first opinion in the Stam, in the Shulchan Aruch of the Stam. Villa halacha. Halachically speaking, if a person went ahead and he if a person went ahead and he did Havadala prior to washing, Vaday yesh lifsok safek berachot lakel. For sure we should paskin that we have, whenever there's a doubt into say a blessing or not, one should be lenient. Upatur mibracha achrona. He is exempt from the after blessing. Ubetoch hasuda gam ke patur levarach al hayayin. Also during the meal, you are also exempt from blessing on the wine. Kedeya harishona, like the first opinion in the Shulchan Aruch, which is the Stam. So basically, what is the Mishnah Berurah telling us right now? Villa halacha, halachically speaking, a person went ahead and he did Havadala prior to the washing of the hands. We're going to go with the first opinion. But the first opinion clearly said, if a person went ahead and he did Havadala on the cup of wine, on the table, even before he washed his hands, we're going to tell him this, that he blessed on the kosher Havadala, is going to go ahead and is going to help him for the wine that's inside the meal. So we see from over here, since it's a machlokim between the Stam v'yesh, the Mishnah Berurah tells you v'lahalacha v'adayish lefsok safek berach blakel. Since one of them is going to tell you don't bless, and one of them is going to tell you to bless, we're going to tell you since you have a machlokim whether you have to bless or not, you have a doubt to bless or not, we're going to be lenient and we're going to tell you not to follow the Ramah in this case. We're going to go with the Stam opinion that will hold that the brikata mazon, that eventually when you're going to do after the meal, will cover the after blessing for the kosher Havadala that you did before the washing of the hands. And also the Mishnah Berurah said, when you're drinking the cup of wine and doing the meal now, you don't have to bless on it. We did this partially, we did yesterday in Siman, Kuf Ayin Daled, Halacha Daled, and what he wrote over there. Now, Rabotai, we have to understand like this. We saw over there in Siman Kuf Ayin Daled, Halacha Daled, after the Shulchan Aruch brought the opinions regarding how to go ahead, the same machlok that we had over here, please listen to a previous class. The Shulchan Aruch concluded saying that since not to put ourselves into a doubt, he says, Hilkach, therefore, Hamavdil Kodum Nitila, anybody's going to go ahead and do Havadala prior to washing, Yichaven Shalolo Otzi Yain Shebetoch HaSuda, have kavanah, have open kavanah, not to exempt the wine that you're going to drink during the meal. So therefore, afterwards, when I'm finished, I can go back and say another bracha on the cup of wine during the meal. We saw in the Mishnah Berurah says in Sifkat and Tadvav, Ve'az yivarech bracha achron al kol zeh kodem hasuda. Then he says, so since you had that kavanah to not include the cup of wine during the meal, so therefore you can bless another blessing of Borei Geffen, good. So if I'm, let's do like this. If this is the kosher Havadala, so before I start drinking, I say, I don't want the blessing of Borei Geffen to include this cup of wine that's during the meal. I want to be able to bless a separate blessing. The Mishnah Berurah tells you, since you are having that kavanah, then you have to go ahead and bless a bracha achrona on this cup of wine. We saw in the previous class that Hamudei Horah, he brought the Pesach Halacha like this also, the Kaf HaChaim, and Rav David Yosef Halacha Berurah, he also said the same halacha that you should bless the bracha achrona. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to say the Borei Geffen on this. Rabotai, so I have a little bit of a difficulty over here, and I'll tell you why. When I looked into the Yalkut Yosef, right, because Rabbi Dan also brings down this Yalkut Yosef, and he says like this. He says, Avala Yalkut Yosef, Simon Kuf Ein Zayin, which I'm in right now, in Sov Ha'ara Yur Aleph, towards the end of the footnotes, towards the end, so that's how I know I have to look over here. Pasak, he made a Pasak halacha. The ein levarech bracha achron al hayayin, Havadala kodem hasuda. You shouldn't bless, excuse me, and after blessing on this kosher Havadala, before you're going to have your meal. Why? Kevin, since the sovayan gorer ha'achila, since bottom line is wine, it opens up a person's appetite to eat. V'niftar b'brikat hamazon, and you're going to be exempt with the brikat hamazon. When you're going to do after the meal, it's going to exempt the alagefet that you were supposed to do on the kos shel Havdalah. Now, when I looked over here in the back of he says over here, he brings, by the way, according to the Shulchan Aruch, he says in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, he says, "Mikol makom behavdalah she'ena ba'al ligoror." According to the Shulchan Aruch, he holds that Havdalah is not coming to open up a person's appetite, because when you're doing Havdalah for what? In order to separate the chol from the kodesh. You're not doing Havdalah to open up your appetite. So that he says, "Mikol makom behavdalah she'ena ba'al ligoror." Pasag maran levarech. Since when you're doing Havdalah, it's not like a regular. You're not sitting down on a regular day and taking up a cup of wine and saying, I want to drink because I want to have a better appetite. So therefore I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands after. You're not doing that. Havdalah you're obligated to do, and it's a mitzvah by itself. It has nothing to do with the meal that you're going to eat. So that's what the Shulchan Aruch wants to pass in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet. We'll see that actually also it's in Siv Chet. We'll see that in the following class. Levarach, he says you should bless the blessing, the after blessing. But Rav Yitzchak Yosef writes over here, V'taruch iyun. He says it needs to be looked into. Why? The sov ha zayin v'yipater b'brikat mazon. So I don't get it. But the bottom line is, wine can satiate you, and let the brikat mazon exempt you. V'so, and furthermore he says that Magen Avraham Sham hiksha al zed midivrei Rosh. The Magen Avraham asked on this from the words of the Rosh. V'lachen gam zeh savik berachot ulukulo. So too, even when it comes to the after blessing, we're going to tell you, according to Rav Yitzchak Yosef Shita, not to bless it before the Havdalah. Not before the Havdalah, I'm sorry. When it comes to the after blessing of Allah Gev Al Priya Gefen, not to bless it on the kos shel Havdalah before you're going to do the meal. Have the meal and let Brikat HaMazon go ahead and exempt the kos shel Havdalah. Rabotai, so this. Now, I want to show you something over here. I look into Rav David Yosef Shita also. Rav David, I'm not going to go through the whole halacha, I just want to read for you what we're dealing with right now. Rav David Yosef says like this, V'amavdil ala kos, if a person does Havdalah on a cup of wine, u'beda'ato le'echol su'udah la'achar miken, and in his mind he wants to go ahead and have the meal afterwards, nechluku ha'poskim im hayayin sheshata behavdalah, poter et hayayin, there's a machloket with the poskim if the wine that he drank for Havdalah is going to exempt the wine that he wants to go ahead and drink during the meal. Exactly our case, Rabotai. Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, Halacha Zayin, exactly our case. V'yesh omrim, and there are those that say, sheyayin shel Havdalah poter yayin sheshuteh b'sudah shel acharecha. The wine of the Havdalah is going to exempt the wine that the person is going to drink during the meal afterwards, like the stam in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, Halacha Zayin. V'yesh omrim, and there are those that say, shemikim shayayin shel Havdalah bol shem mitzvat Havdalah. There are those that say the yesh omrim over here, that since the wine of Havdalah is coming for the mitzvah of Havdalah to separate the mundane from the kodesh, it doesn't exempt the wine that you're going to drink in the future in the meal, unless you wash your hands prior to doing the Havdalah, like we saw in the Yesh Omrim over here. In order to come out of this safek, this machloket, this doubt, what to do, have open kavanah, בשעה שמבדיל שלא לפתור בהבדלה, את היין שעתיד לשתות לאחר מכן בסעודה. Have open kavanah, at the time when you do the Havdalah, that you don't want to exempt with this Havdalah, the wine that you're going to have during the meal afterwards. Like we saw in Siman Kuf Ayin Daled, Halacha Daled. V'im lo asaken, if a person didn't do so, lo yivarech al hayayin sheshete b'seuda. Don't bless on the wine that you're going to drink during the meal. Ukishemichaven b'ferish shelo leftor et hayayin shatid l'shtod la'achar miken b'seuda. But if you had open kavanah that you don't want to drink the wine that you're going to have during the meal, afterwards, tzarich levarech le'acharav birkat me'in shalosh, says you need to go ahead and bless the blessing of the alagev abriya gefen, the after blessing, before you're going to eat the meal, and afterwards, go wash your hands for the meal.